Okay, I've got some notes here I want to go over with you explaining XML before we actually go over our exercise here. First of all, XML stands for Extensible Markup Language, and the little X here in between the E and the T is the acronym for XML, Extensible Markup Language. Well, the language is a shareable language between different programs. So if you have one programmer that creates a program using a language different from somebody else who creates another program, we got to have some sort of common language in between the two, don't we? Like an interpreter. Cool. So what it does is it describes only the content of the file, not the formatting, and it uses tags or quote a set of rules and then saved as an XML document. Part of what makes XML so shareable between all the programs is it doesn't load it down with a bunch of extra coding or formatting. So for example, in Microsoft Word, I could select some text and then load it down with styles, bold, font, colors, and everything. Going behind all the scenes here is all this coding to make it look good for us and to get it to do what we want. But if we take most of that stuff out and just have simple data, like a person's address, that's simple data. You don't have to make it bold, italics, and put it in a table and bog down with coding. So if we just give somebody some data, they can go ahead and format it in their program the way they want it, maybe in another table, a different layout, or however they program it. I'm only telling you what I know with Word here versus like another word processing program made by another programmer, like Corel, WordPerfect, or something like that. So think of this up here as your XML document. Now the XML document has to have a set of rules. That's where we come down here, and looking at our hierarchical structure, you could say one's not without the other. So just to have an empty document with nothing in it that tells us or defines a set of rules of what kind of data can be used within the document here really makes it meaningless. And they're called schemas. And they have a .xsd extension. So you have one file which is a .xml extension. Then you have another file on the outside that you link to that says here are the set of rules that I link to that tells you what kind of data you can be using in this XML document. You want to take a look? Let's take a look here. Come down here, I got a folder ready. Here's my XML document, okay? There's the extension .xml. Now you may not see this, and the reason why you don't see it is because you probably have your tools to folder options on the View tab set to hide extensions, which is probably a good idea, but I uncheck it because I want to see my extensions. If you hide the extension, have you ever right-clicked and renamed a file and you deleted the extension too? And when you delete it, it says, I don't know who I am any longer. It gives you this error box. That's because you're messing with the back end that tells it what it is. Sure, we know what it is, but how does the computer know what it is? Well, it's XML according to the computer, and this is a .docx, which is a document file according to the computer. But if we start deleting those extensions, then the computer doesn't know what program to open it up in, whether Microsoft Word or something else. So that's why most computers, when you buy them new, don't give you the access or don't show the extension. So if you just right-click, you usually edit the name. And you can't hurt anything by editing the name, except you just forget where you put it because you didn't name it in a way that's memorable to you. So in any case, there's the XML document, and the XML document is going to be linked to the schema. And those files have an extension .xsd. So it's saying that the type of data in here is going to be defined on whatever the programmer gave us that says, hey, this schema right here is all about setting up inventory. Maybe it ought to be structured, your XML document, in this inventory manner. Or maybe it's going to be about a fax manner. Like, how you have your faxed, the data that you're going to be inserting into it. So we have an XML document, and then the programmers are going to give us schemas, however they program it. And the programmers or other people will give us schemas that we can actually tie to help define this. So bear with me as I go through this here. I'm going to continue on. Now that we have the XML document tied to a set of rules of what data can be used, then once we define what data can be used, then each rule within there is going to be tagged, the data. So what kind of data can be used? Now what data is in the document. And they're tagged by what they call XML elements. Now we're actually looking within the XML document. In the XML document here are going to be XML elements, and what's going to be linking the two, what can be used, is going to be the .xsd file. This isn't a file, these are actually elements. And I'm going to go ahead and open up an XML file for you to show these tags. And what it does, it says here's some data, and it tags them off. Okay, so it knows what the data is. So I'm going to come down here, come up here, I'm going to open up an XML file. Just double click on it. There it is. Let's be anal and break it down one more time so you're sick of it. This is an XML document. Linked to this is actually going to be the schema. And you can see the address, the schemas, or a link to it, and it's via the website. Now it defines what data can be in here, or the type of data. Then the XML elements are going to be tagged, or the data that we're trying to share with another program. So XML's got the coding, and there's the first tag. and then there's the end tag. You see the difference between the two? This is the opening tag, and a closing tag is the same as the opening except it has a / to identify that it's closing. If you haven't guessed already, you can take a look at this, and we're sending it to a city, to an address, to a company, to a person, from a company, from a fax number. So this XML file is basically set up defining the data is about fax information, fax data, who we're sending it to, what it's regarding, and the fax numbers. So breaking this down, what we're saying is we opened up a program of a fax. Now we want to be able to give somebody else this document, Word document fax, but we can't give it to them because they don't use Microsoft Word, they have something else. You know, you could always email all this to them, but think on a huge scale when you have two entirely different companies trying to talk to each other and they can't without an interpreter. So what they do is they go in, they went in Microsoft Word in the fax, and if you haven't watched a training video on creating templates, if you look at a fax template, they went in there and they tagged who it's going to go to, hence the to tag, the company name they tagged. They just went ahead and they tagged it all, so we can pull just clean data, nothing else, no formatting. So I'm going to close out of here, come back, emphasize one more time, XML is the document, .xml is the extension. It's going to be linked to an XSD file to tell us what kind of data can be used in this file here. And it can be linked, and I'm talking a web link, it can be linked off of your computer, it can be linked to a server that your company has. And then within the XML document, up here the XML document we're talking about, is the XML elements. It actually takes the data and marks them off. So it knows that when we import this into another program, what data is versus what the coding is. It tells us what it is. So let's go ahead and get started. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my Humphreys contact information. Double click on it. Okay, I've got a document here that I want to be able to give the data to somebody else because they don't have the program that I'm using. Okay, Microsoft Word here. So I want to come in here and tag all the data and then be able to take that data, save it as an XML file so I can give this to another programmer who wants to be able to take my data and import it into their program. Again, they can't open what I have in here, which is in Microsoft Word, into whatever program they're using. So I'm going to tag off the data, just give them the data. So how do I do that? First of all, like I said, before we save an XML document, and this is just a plain document, you can see up at the top it's .docx. It's not an XML file. Before I can save this document as an XML file, I want to be able to set it up first, define the data that can be used within this document, and then I'll save it as an XML file. So first of all, the schema. To get started, I got a plain document. I want to tag off the data so I can give it to somebody else. I need to attach a schema to it to define the data, and the only way I can start doing all this is by using the Developer tab. And on the Developer tab, you have the XML group, and that's where we're going to go ahead and attach our schemas, okay? If you don't have the Developer tab, click on the Office logo button, come down to Word Options. Under the Popular category, check the box Developer tab and ribbon, then when you click OK, it'll be right up there for you to click on. So first of all, I want to go ahead and click on Schema, and then I want to find the file out there that maybe from somebody else or some IT person that will define the type of data to be used in the XML file. So I click on Add Schema button, and I browse through my computer or on the network, wherever that .xsd file is, and it's in the exercise folder, in the XML folder. Oh, I got two schemas here. You can see I got two .xsd files. Which one is it? I know I'm supposed to be setting the data up specifically for a fax. So I'm hoping one of these schemas is data defined by fax. Let's try schema 1. If I double click on it, you can tell right here, you see the unique resource identifier URI. It says this data is defined by inventory. That's not the fax, and that's what I was told to do. But in any case, let me take it one step further. I'll go ahead and import it to show you how to remove it. And this is going to be inventory. Now the reason why I put an alias in here is that to make the schemas easier to find once I'm working it with them, once I have them imported here or linked to it. So I click OK, and there it is. So even in new documents, once I've got this linked up, all new documents will have this. It's tied to your new template, so every time you open up a new document, it's always going to be there until you remove it. Now, where's my remove button? It's not here. You have to go down a level in the library by clicking on the library button, select your inventory, and there's your delete. And get rid of it and click OK, and now it's gone. So let's go to the next one. Click Add Schema. Again, let me go to the desktop exercise folder, XML. There's the second one. Of course, it would have been helpful if they have identified this, wouldn't it? In any case, if I double click on it, There's a unique resource identifier, and there it is. It's the fax schema. So it defines that this schema that I'm going to tie to save as an XML document, this document behind me, is saying that the type of data is going to be fax. So for the element, it's going to be cover sheet fax or fax cover sheet, and then click OK, and that's how I can easily identify it. So now that it's attached, I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and boom, it opens up the structure so I can begin tagging the data within my document. I'm not going to tag everything because if I'm giving this data to somebody else, I don't need sincerely in there, do I? I just need the person's name, their company, the important data. Okay, if you need to go back and manage your schemas, you can always, of course, come up here and click on the schema button. And cover sheet, how about if I come down here and say validate document against attached schemas? Check that. And what that does, it compares the contents of the XML document to the rules in the attached schema. And if a rule is broken, then violators will be appearing over here in the task pane or the structure. And it will have an icon next to the element or the schema element name where the violation occurred. And you can hover over the icon for details. So I want to, validate, make sure that what they told me to do in the schema with what I do in the document here, the XML, is matching here to validate it. And click OK. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to include the whole document here. When I start tagging my document, I'll hit Control-A to select everything. And then over to the right, it's asked me to choose an element to apply to your current selection. It's going to be my fax. It's the one that I tied to it, the schema. I'm going to click on it. Well, it's going to ask me, this is the first element applied to the document. Do you want to apply this element to the entire document or current selection? I want the entire document. And so it begins the tag. There's the open tag. It's saying the fax cover, and then there's the close tag. So everything within there I can tag off. And you can see I've got an error here because I'm missing all the elements down below that I'm supposed to be tagging off that's required. I need to define in the document who this is to, the company I'm sending it to, which is going to be are you being served, their address, and so on. Once I tag all these with all the elements down below, this little error here is going to disappear. And that's part of validating when I clicked on the schema here against the attached schemas, just to make sure I use and tag everything. So this allows us to mark the entire document between the open and closed tags of the quote schema fax cover with the elements. So there's the fax cover schema, and we can mark it up here. Before we do that, I can come over here and right click on the fax cover here schema and be able to look at the attributes. Basically, an attribute is a markup component containing additional data describing data stored in an element or rule. So we're talking about the fax here and the send date, the available attributes. I want to go ahead and tie a value to it, like today's date, February 21st of 08, and go ahead and click Add. So there's an assigned attribute. I'm sending the document off, and I got my value tied to it. Now again, this may be a little bit confusing because what's the point of this? And like I say, this is taking somebody else's work and trying to work with it and deal with it, defined by that schema, type of data I can use within the document here. And again, we selected the schema, and we applied it to the whole document, and there's my open and closed tags that I can go ahead and tag off the data in between to be able to send this off to somebody else that's going to be clean. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. One other thing that we can do before we go ahead and tag this off is down at the bottom we've got the XML options link. Click on that. It opens that up. And then down here, if you don't have it checked, you can hide the namespace alias in the XML structure task pane, because right now, it's got the fax cover. If I remove that, click OK, it gives me the whole name of it. In other words, the alias that we set up earlier, remember cover fax sheet when we went to schema, cover fax sheet, that's now appearing all over here, and that just looks junky here. So I'm going to click on XML link and hide the alias that we set up and just give me the basic information here. So next we want to be able to start tagging. I'm going to go ahead and select the name, and this is who it's to, and click on it, and it tags it. Remember in the XML document where it had the open to tag and the close to tag? Well, this is what it looks like graphically here when we're working in Microsoft Word. And I just need to continue on, and there's the company. So as soon as I select it, I come over here and click to company. Here's the to address or to street. There's the city, to city, to state. Click on that. Here's the postal code. And then when I click off of it, it gives me more information over here. So I can click on these up and down arrows to give me a little bit more space. That gives me just a little bit more. Here's the to phone number. Here's the to fax. This is my from fax. Click down there, adds the from. See, what else do I need to tag that's left here? That all the information that they want, who it's from, of course that's me. Let me select that. From company, let me select Dreamforce. And then finally, did you see that last one, what it's regarding? It's going to regard, I want to verify you have the correct information here. Come down and tag it. So what we've done is we went ahead and linked the schemas to our document here. We haven't saved it as XML yet because the schema is defining what type of data we can use within the document, and you can see all the elements down below. Whoever created that schema wanted us to tag or to pull out. So we went ahead and we did all this. The moment that we do that, you notice the little yellow yield sign is now gone because we used all the elements. Well, watch what happens if I come back in here and I right click on one of the tags and I say remove regarding tag. It pops back up saying, look, you're missing some elements. You haven't tagged everybody. So then I just have to come over here, select it again, and then come down and tag it. And now it's happy. You see over here these little dots here? It represents mixed content or any information that's not tagged. And so when you click on it, you can see it selects what's not tagged, everything in between. When I click on that, it selects everything in between that's not tagged. You may want to consider removing mixed content and formatting, giving this to someone who doesn't have Word 2003 and later. And we'll go over this just a little bit later. Now there's two different types of XML documents you can save this as. They'll still be XML, but you can either save it as a Word XML document or as a data-only document. What that means is that if you save it as a Word document, Word's going to add its own coding and stuff to it. So when you send this on to somebody else and they double-click on it, the coding in there tells it to open this XML in Microsoft Word, and it's also going to retain Word's own related information like the properties, original structure, and formatting options. And they're hidden and unmodifiable. So if somebody else has Microsoft Word, you want to send it over to them just like this, so it looks like this when they open it up. Go ahead and click on the Office logo button, come down, and I'm going to click on Save As. I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow and come down here to Word XML. And then you can see we also have Word 2003, but we'll cover that in just a second. That's the second part I'm talking about. But first, it's Word XML. So if anybody has Microsoft Word, when they get this, can open it up in Microsoft Word. I'm going to set it to my desktop here and just go ahead and click Save. There's the first step. Now the second step, if I want to save this as data only and I want to really clean this up, first of all, I'm going to come down here to the bottom of my task pane, my XML options link. Click on that. I'm going to say I want to save it as data only. And I also want to ignore mixed content. The mixed content, remember those little dots over here? It's the stuff that hasn't been tagged. So like the colon here, I don't think it's been tagged. Deer hasn't been tagged. All this other stuff that I don't want in there. I just want the data only. So I'm going to click OK. Look at that. The mixed content disappears. So it's no longer got those little dots over in the task pane. Then I can come up here, click on the Office logo button, come down, click on Save As. Change the Save As type down to Word 2003 XML. Make sure my Save Data Only is checked. And then instead of clicking Save, because it looks like it's the same name, it's going to overwrite what I already have in here. But this is Microsoft Word. In fact, if you can see a little tiny Word logo, it is XML, but it's going to open up in Word. Let me go ahead and click in here and call it number 2. And then click Save. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to close out of this. On my desktop, I've got the first one I saved, and then the second one. The first one you can see has a little Word logo here, or that icon, so when I double click, it opens up Word. Close out. Because I save this as data only, Word isn't jumbled up in here, so when I double click, it actually opens up in my Internet Explorer, and it's clean. It doesn't have all Word's programming in there, formatting and stuff. It just has the basic data, and it doesn't have the mixed content. So what I didn't tag isn't listed here. If I didn't check the box, ignore mixed content, those little colons and semicolons and other text would have been listed at the end of each tag, which isn't clean. So I'll close out of here. Okay, now that we got that squared away, let's do a quick review before I take you to the next level. We talked about an XML document, attaching it to a schema that defines the data to be used in the document. Well, now we have what's called transforms here. That the XSD defines the data to be used in the document. Well, this one defines the formatting instructions of the data in the document, and they call them transforms XML. Now, it's actually not an XML document. It's like an XSD, only it's XSL. For an extensible style sheet language, or they also have XSLT. So the operative word being style sheet, how to style or format the data within your XML document. So the XSL document language contains formatting instructions and can be applied to part or all of an XML document to show tagged data as other types of documents, like a fax document. Remember when we did our templates and the fax document placed it within certain areas with different formatting? Well, this is the formatting part of it. A transform that is associated with a particular schema is called a solution. So in other words, you've got data. But what's your solution with the data? What are you going to do with it? Well, the data that we had, the clean data, the solution is going to be a fax document formatting, and the solution is our style sheet. Being able to say, look, we got the data, now where are you going to put it? There's your solution. And that's what a transform XML with a .xsl extension is. Coming back to my folder here, we have our XSL right here. We have a solution for mailing labels. So once I have my data, I can tie this solution to the data, mailing labels. I can tie the XSL solution fax cover to the data. So I can take that data and I can say, here's one solution where it puts it in a nice formatted, where it puts it in a nice document, looks like a fax document, formatted and everything. Or I can take the data and have it also in a nice format of mailing labels. Let me go ahead and show you. This will be fun. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that, and I'm taking a clean XML file here, which is my Humphreys, and I want to right-click it and open it with Microsoft Word. It'll only work this way, and let me show you. When I open it with Word, automatically the task pane comes over here, and it gives me the option to tie an XSLT, apply a data solution to this clean format. Because if I minimize this and I open this up in Word, heck, I could have double-clicked on it, doesn't Word already have its own formatting? I mean, look at it. I can come in here and mess this around and make them bold and put lines in here and, gosh, borders. If I decide to do a border with a line up above or maybe to the side or boxed around Wilbur here. I mean, there's all the formatting, right? But if I get a clean XML file that I can't open up in Word, at least when I double click on it, but I can when I right click it to force it up to open in Word, I'm going to go ahead and close out. So in other words, I got my clean XML. Because of that, I'm going to open it up with Word. Because it doesn't have any formatting with it, it's clean. It allows me to tie a style sheet to it, somebody who programmed the style sheet to it, to give it the formatting that I want. Now, I agree, Microsoft Word is the easiest way to do it. Who wants to save this data as clean data and be able to tie a style sheet to it when you can keep it all within one document with Word and just go ahead and modify, add bold, and all this other stuff, right? Well, in any case, let me show you how it works. It's very simple. All you have to do is click on the Browse button. I'm going to come to my desktop, again to my exercise folder in the XML file, and let's say these are going to be mailing labels. Double click on it. Boom. It automatically takes the data that was within that document and creates them into mailing labels. Look at that. Isn't that fun? Okay, and then if there's another style sheet out there that some programmer created for me that can take the same data and automatically put it into a fax, just click on the Browse button, of course, and go to that file if it's on your server, whatever it's at. And the programmer dumped it for me here, fax cover, double click on it, boom, it takes the data, transforms it right into, or the style sheet, placed it where it needed to go, wherever the programmer, however they set this style sheet up. It's pretty cool. And then I can just go before, after. And then, of course, what you can do is once you decided upon the data set, either mailing labels or fax cover, you can save this to your desktop. Just go ahead and click Office logo down to Save As, and then be sure to change your type of document to just a Word document. And then I'm going to click to the desktop and say this is my fax, and then click Save. Because I saved this as a fax document, it's converted to a fax, so I no longer have access to the XML. When I click on it, it gives me errors because, like I said, I changed this over. I'm now looking at a fax document. So I can go ahead and close out of this. Now, adding transforms to an XML will be removed once the file is closed. Well, first of all, we already saved it, so it's no longer an XML, and when we close out, it's going to be removed unless we actually add them to the schema library. So I'm going to close out of here, right-click and open this up with Word again, and this is my clean data file, right? Going to come up here and click on the Developer tab, click on the Schema button, click on the Schema library, and then to my schema here, I want to add a solution here. So just go ahead and click on Add Solution, and then scroll through my computer here until I find my solution. One of them is the fax, so I'll double click on fax. I can give it an alias, call it my fax cover, so it's easier to recognize, and click OK. Let's add another solution. It's going to be my mailing labels. Double click on that. We can call it mailing labels and then hit enter. So now I have my solutions that will always be available just like my schema is. Every time I click on the schema button, no matter even if I'm in a new document. So if I click OK again, it automatically adds them over to the task pane here. So even if I click on Office logo to new button, double click on blank document, and then I come up here to the developer tab and I click on schema. There's the fax cover sheet schema, and I go to the schema library and I select cover sheet. Like I said, they're always going to be there from here on out, and I won't lose them when I close out of the document. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.